Good morning, good afternoon, everybody, depending on which part of this country that you're in. I am Sheila Gunn Reid, and you are watching our daily news and opinion show. It's a live show, so things may be breaking live as we talk today. Uh, this is Rebel Roundup, and I'm joined by my friend and colleague Tamara Ugolini. It's, I think, a dark day for the conservative movement. I think we're all trying to process what happened yesterday with the execution, political execution of Charlie Kirk. And it's also the 24th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. So it's a real somber day for our American friends. Are you like me, Tamara, where it just sort of seems surreal? I'm angry. I am I don't know if I feel anything other than just anger, visceral anger at what happened. And I know there are other people who are, like this is a time for healing. I'm not there yet. I don't know about you.
Yeah, somber is definitely a great word to describe how today feels. And I was really hoping, when the news hit yesterday and just the shock of Charlie's untimely death as a young 31-year-old father,
31.
husband with an entire life supposed to be ahead of him. I was hoping that by now I would have done a little bit more processing and be able to have collected myself a little bit more than I did yesterday. And I'll be honest that I haven't.
Yeah.
This is just absolutely devastating news. And anyone that I speak to is equally as devastated and somber and praying for Charlie's wife, their two children. As someone who's obviously married and has children of my own, the just that dark thought of being in that situation is unfathomable. And I thought I would have more words, and as a commentator, I just really don't, other than trying to uphold the legacy that was Charlie Kirk and his ability to tap into the political will and political power of young people across America,
Yeah.
and the ricochet effect that we can glean from that here in Canada, where he built this, over the course of several years, he built this massive movement through the very same events that took his life yesterday at a university campus in Utah. It's so disturbing that at a place that is supposed to ignite discussion and debate and critical thinking, and it could also be the site of such political persecution and prosecution, as you say, and assassination. He reached millions in his
Yeah.
podcast, and that is such, other than the obvious loss to his wife, his family, his children, that is such a loss to the young conservatives who he was influential in initiating that open discourse and that dialogue. And I think the only thing that Charlie Kirk is guilty of here is having respectful, open, public discussion about controversial topics that, the establishment would rather you just cower away from. And sadly, I think there will be two sides to this situation where it does serve to stifle that discussion for people who may be terrified now, even more terrified than they were previously, into submission to the narrative, to the establishment. But I think it will also serve to embolden people to live his legacy through and live on by saying, no, we need to make sure that we continue to have these conversations. We need to continue to have this dialogue. And I really hope to see more of that, because there are so many amazing clips, and I hope we can go through some of them, of Charlie Kirk's speeches, his talks, his debates, his discussions that we will not let die.
Yeah. I mean, there are things in recent history that you can remember exactly what you were doing when you heard the news. Like, I remember what I was doing when Princess Diana died. I remember what I was doing when the towers fell. I remember exactly what I was doing when I found out that Andrew Breitbart had died, because you just knew that these were things that in an instant changed everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I know exactly what I was doing yesterday, and I don't think I'll ever forget, because and I was giving some thought to this because it is 9/11 today. And I remember the coming together of everybody post 9/11. Like everybody was an American that day.
Yeah.
And this is the opposite. That even people, like the people whose rhetoric led to the weaponization of the person or persons who did this still won't shut up. You know, when you go around telling everybody that you go around telling the punch a Nazi crowd that not only is Charlie Kirk a Nazi, everybody who agrees with Charlie or even just agrees with his viewpoint that we should engage in civil debate, they're also Nazis too. Oh, and by the way, they're also genociding you by not affirming you. Well, then what would you do if someone was genociding you? You would meet them with deadly force. And now we've got it. And you would think they would have changed after Trump was very nearly killed twice on the campaign trail. But, you know, I also remember where I was when I heard that Steve Scalise was shot in 2017 while playing baseball. That was a attempted political assassination. And you think things would have changed then, but no. You keep saying, you know, like you as like us as a society, we keep saying this, we got to bring the temperature down because somebody's going to get killed. And then somebody gets killed and the temperature is just as hot as ever. And I don't know what to do with my anger today. But there are plenty of people on our side who have been throwing around the word Nazi, trying to get liked by the punch a Nazi crowd, maligning their critics. And I don't think we should let those people recede into the bushes, embarrassed Homer Simpson meme style either. I think those people need to be called out tougher than ever. Let's get, I could just rant about this forever, but and we do have some guests on the show today, hopefully,
Yes.
that will join us. We've got Libby Emmons. She's the editor-in-chief over at Post Millennial and Human Events, and we should have Viva Fry joining us later in the show, David Freiheit. He's a Canadian in America, so I think he has a unique viewpoint on this. But you wrote this up today. Tone-deaf mainstream media host fired following Charlie Kirk murder commentary. I hope there are many, many, many firings coming up in academia and otherwise, and we'll get to those. But tell us what happened here, Tamara.
Yeah, and before we do, it's not to say that anyone should be, the government should come after people.
No, I don't want them arrested
for wrongthing, but to be so out of touch and so tone deaf to the tragic loss of life of a father, a husband, and someone who had amassed such a massive following bred from positivity. I view Charlie Kirk's commentary as positive, open dialogue and discussion that is obviously so desperately needed in this world. And so here we have the first of, as you mentioned, Sheila, perhaps a string of firings that will take place. But this comes from an MSNBC political analyst, Matthew Dowd, who was fired after suggesting on air, right, like just as this was breaking news, that Charlie Kirk was somehow responsible for or contributed to his own assassination. And I'm going to read through this article while also throwing to some of these highlights, because I think that it is so important for everyone to see the kind of response that the mainstream media and the collectivists are having to this tragedy. And I think it was Charlie Kirk who actually said himself, you can judge someone by how they react when someone dies.
Yeah.
And that's what I've done in this. Well, I haven't judged them. I mean, I'm sure you can glean, but I've just broken down who has kind of said what. And so let's read through this. MSNBC has canned political analyst Matthew Dowd after his jaw-droppingly insensitive remarks following the tragic assassination of conservative firebrand Charlie Kirk. During a live broadcast, Dowd essentially implied that Kirk's bold, unapologetic takes on everything from gun rights to civil liberties somehow invited the bullet that ended his life at the young age of 31. You can't stop with these sorts of awful thoughts you have and then saying these awful words and then not expect awful actions to take place.
Right.
Dowd.
He shouldn't have been wearing that short skirt if he didn't want all that unwanted male attention.
Oh, we'll get to the victim
Yeah.
blaming. He said, you know, he says this as though debating liberal views or questioning them or having open dialogue about them is some sort of capital offense. MSNBC is now appearing to scramble to save face following the backlash of this commentary, calling Dowd's words inappropriate, insensitive, and unacceptable. Sadly, what's equal parts shocking and utterly predictable is that this is not an isolated incident in the United States. Here in Canada, our taxpayer-funded propaganda machine, the state broadcaster CBC, has pulled a similar stunt. And before I continue on, maybe we can just play this little clip from the CBC, what they were saying.
It's exactly who you think it is. It's
Live
one
on
of
air.
two. It's one of two people. Make your guess right now.
I mean, look, Charlie Kirk, and I don't say any of this to disparage him, but was a controversial, polarizing figure, right? The provocations that these university tours, he's going to these campuses, you know, to sort of provocation and confrontation and debate and argument was a big part of what he did with his Turning Point USA. But he was very close to Donald Trump, who has ordered all U.S. flags to be lowered in honor of Charlie Kirk for his murder today. You can see right there. Is that the White House? I think that's the White House. So this speaks to his importance and central role to Donald Trump, Katie. I mean, look, Charlie Kirk.
Wow. And we'll get to more. There's a couple more clips of David Cochran there as well, who's host of Power and Politics on the state broadcaster. And so,
hey, I'm going to ask Olivia to dig up a clip because I want to show what normal people's reactions are. The people who knew Charlie Kirk. Can you bring up the reaction from Megyn Kelly and Glenn Beck? Glenn Beck's kids were in the crowd that day, by the way. Bring that up. That's what normal people react to these things. That's how a human being. But to say that Charlie Kirk, his mere existence was provocation. No, people can defend themselves. Thank you for bringing this up. These are the two of them who knew Charlie very well, finding out live on air together that Charlie died.
They're reporting that Charlie has died. That he's dead. At the age of 31. Which he would have to be if that video was real.
There's no way he survived that. The only good thing is, it had to have happened quickly.
Right. Right. They're reporting.
They're trying to comfort themselves with the knowledge that it was fast. And then you have people like David Cochran saying, you know, maybe he brought it on himself.
And
gross.
It doesn't stop there. This is just mere hours after it was confirmed that Charlie had succumbed to his injuries. The CBC dropped the headline, "Some of Charlie Kirk's most controversial takes."
My God.
I mean, talk about, I say it in the article, kicking a man when he's down. Instead of, mourning like we just saw from humans and people that knew Kirk personally, mourning that father, that husband, a friend, a defender of free speech, someone who engaged in respectful discourse. They dredged up these criticisms of liberal views as if, to capitalize on his death as some sort of like gotcha moment. Look at what will happen to you if these are your views. That's what the CBC brought you.
A normal publication would say, maybe they could have dug up the times where Charlie was threatened by somebody in the audience. Like, these are the times over the years where he was threatened by maniacs in the audience, was screamed at by them, and still reacted calmly and civilly. To show, instead they're trying to make Charlie the bad guy here, but he was the victim of a bad guy. And it was escalating over years and years and years. I was listening to Steven Crowder this morning, and you know, he was sort of going through all the times because he is the, you know, the guy who sits down at the table and says, prove me wrong, which is a discussion. And they would have stuff thrown at them. And if you could throw something at somebody, you could shoot them, right? It's the same. You could be that, if you can get that close and wing something at somebody, well, it's easy to shoot them. And he was going through all the times where he's just trying to have a civil discussion. People walk up, scream at him, and then assault him or his crew. And so it's a pernicious and systemic problem. And it's not going to get any better when the mainstream media keeps saying, well, you kind of brought it on yourself.
Mm-hmm. It truly adds fuel to the fire and just goes to show how compromised the state broadcaster here is in Canada. I mean, and our political supposed leaders haven't been much better. I want to point to a post from Anthony Housefather, Liberal MP, who really is subtly blaming, well, not even subtly, he's blaming targeted, hateful rhetoric.
Yeah,
and it
Anthony,
really reeks. It really reeks of the same, you know, tone deaf insinuations we heard from the CBC and MSNBC, veiled in some sort of like sympathy.
Yeah, he says he makes himself the victim here, obviously. And he was the only Liberal to say something for hours and hours and hours and hours. But I wish he had actually kept his mouth shut. The murder of Charlie Kirk is a tragedy, and I pray for his family. I hope that those on this and other platforms that repeatedly personally attack people and incite hate against them look at this and see the potential real-life consequences of targeted hateful rhetoric. That phone call is coming from inside the house. Mm-hmm. You're not the victim on Twitter. Conservatives are the victims of violence in real life. Because somebody sent a hate tweet to you, like, grow up. Mm-hmm. You're not the victim. It's your side that's doing this. When you label everything hate and everything violence, people will react in kind. And that's what we're seeing over and over and over again. These people are ghouls. They're just ghouls.
Yeah, and Mark Carney simultaneously posts some clip from his nonsense interview about shifting mindsets on Canadian.
A low-level local podcaster. I checked yesterday and it had like under 3,000 views for hours and hours and hours because nobody cares. Everybody was waiting for him to say something about a political assassination, even if you don't like Charlie Kirk. As a leader of a free country, next door to the Americans, our alleged best friends in the world, somebody very close to Donald Trump was just politically assassinated. Hello, Canada, you might want to say something. No, hours and hours and hours.
Hours and hours, yeah. Here's the clip. And then I think it was 2 hours prior to this, Pierre Poilievre had already posted, we must all strongly denounce the shooting of Charlie Kirk. Political violence is never justified. And he called for the attacker to be brought to justice and free speech upheld.
Yeah, I mean, it was constant yesterday, right after it happened. It was Danielle Smith said something. Doug Ford, by the way, sent out a fundraising email. Of course. Danielle Smith almost instantly sent out a message of condolences. I think just about everybody in the Conservative caucus, from Michael Barrett to Michelle Rempel to Andrew Scheer, condolences to the family and denouncing political violence. This is my premier. Yours, send out a fundraising email. I'm saddened and horrified by the shooting of Charlie Kirk. Our hearts are with Charlie and his family. Political violence has no place in a free and democratic society and must be condemned without reservation. And let us remember, it is the same ideology attacking Danielle Smith for banning graphic pornography from schools and attacking her for banning men from women's sports that led to the death of Charlie.
Yeah, this is a sacred cow. The DEI, the trans sanity, you can't criticize this without facing actual hate and violence out in public, never mind what happens online. But I just wanted to maybe throw to another clip of David Cochrane. It's the last post that I embedded in that written piece, where he shamelessly victim blames Kirk once again, and proving that the CBC isn't really about journalism. It's incitement cloaked as sanctimony and sympathy. And he's joined on air with some NDP individual. I can't remember who this person is, but
this is who they got. They couldn't round up a conservative.
Right. Like, listen to this. It's crazy talk.
Jordan, just you touched on this, and I talked a little about this with Katie Simpson. I just wanted to cycle back on it where you flagged it. Just the inflection point this could be, right? The triggering moment. Sorry, bad choice of words. We talk about Charlie Kirk because he's well known, politically connected. There was a shooting at a Denver high school today in Colorado, or in a suburb in Denver, where 3 kids were shot. I mean, the gun problem in America persists, but the issue with someone like Charlie Kirk is that constituency head and what they may do and how this event could be a flashpoint there.
That's right, and of course, I think it's also going to matter a great deal what the president does. And we don't know yet what is going to happen, but it's clear that this attack was not just an attack on Charlie Kirk as an individual, but also probably, we don't know motive yet, but we can assume it was related to his role in the MAGA movement more generally. And so President Trump, who may well feel that this is a provocation or an excuse to double down on some of his other efforts to quell dissent within the United States.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of things we don't know. There was some early reports about someone being in custody. There were pictures on social media of a man being detained. That person is not the suspect.
Oh, yeah,
that
this
person
part,
is
listen
not
to this.
The shooter. So if you've seen those things, cleanse that from your memory. There was a lot of bad information. In
memory
the
hole
aftermath of something
yourself.
like this. And so we're not going to speculate in the absence of more information. We're going to take a quick break. And when the power panel comes back, we're going to try to get back to Canadian politics. Mark Carney, his caucus, they're meeting in Edmonton.
Just when I think that the state broadcaster in Canada can't get any worse, here we are. The gaslighting and the psychological manipulation that you would have to be under to say that this is somehow going to be, like, depending on how Trump takes this, instead of calling out political violence, is absolutely insane to me. Like, this is so disturbing and disgusting that these are the mental gymnastics that are being broadcasted on air, and I have to pay through that through unwitting taxation. This is disgusting.
If David Cochrane's worried about what the conservative movement is going to do next in light of this shooting, David, I promise you, I will do everything I can to make sure that you are unemployed. That's what I'm going to do. I will do everything in my power to push forward the idea that the CBC should be completely defunded of tax dollars. And if that means that you don't have a job, I don't care. In fact, that's the cherry on the top of the cake. Okay. You know what? If he's worried about what conservatives are going to do, conservatives didn't do anything last night except pray and wonder about their own safety. No shops were boarded up. No riots happened. No mobs took to the streets burning their communities, because that is sure as hell what happens on the other side when this sort of stuff happens. And when I say this sort of stuff, I mean a death that is suddenly becoming a flashpoint. I would never compare what happened to Charlie with George Floyd. But if you want to compare things, look
reactions.
Right there. Look right there. Conservatives didn't do anything. But there are a lot of people after this week who have moved from moderate conservative to hardline. And they want people like David Cochrane to lose their jobs. I'm one of them. I don't want what he said there to be illegal, but I want everybody to hear it, because these are the people who are our self-appointed moral and intellectual superiors, and they hate us. They think of us as animals that can't control ourselves, that can't think our way out of a problem, that will react poorly, that we will burn our cities. We didn't, David, but I will do everything I can to make sure that not another tax dollar drips into that bloated, decaying, sinking ship of the CBC.
Yeah, the dehumanization and the dehumanizing response of all of those people, it speaks volumes to where they're at ideologically. It is deeply concerning. And yeah, you know what, if David Cochrane wants to have a job on his own record and say whatever he wants to say and have whatever opinions and views he wants to say on his own time, go right ahead. But my
start a
tax
podcast.
dollars are funding this nonsense, and it is deeply maddening that this continues on unabated.
Yeah. You know what? We forgot to say off the top, and it's my fault because I'm just in a mood today. My face is just so hot. If you want to have your say and get involved in the show, there are a couple ways to do it. If you're watching us on Rumble, you can leave a Rumble rant. I would love to hear what you guys have to say. And our guests are just jumping on too. So if you have questions for them, please put them in the Rumble rant or on the super chats if you are watching us on YouTube. Looks like, Olivia, are we ready to bring our guests on, or we want to give them a couple of minutes?
Well, I was thinking maybe we'll hit these Rumble rants or super chats that we have already.
And then we'll bring them on.
Go to a quick ad break to recalibrate, and then we'll bring them on if we have enough time for that.
Yeah, please.
Wonder Woman Wells gives $10. Thanks so much. Kirk positioned himself as someone fighting not just for political reform, but for the soul of the nation. Yeah, and you can see who has a soul and who the soulless ghouls are in how they respond to his untimely and tragic death. Exactly, the soul of the nation and the soul of the people who are responding, or the soullessness of the people who are responding to his death. Pasty George gives $10. No, I think it's Pasty. Anyway, hi Pasty. We have to take a step back, control our emotions, and critically think about this. Charlie Kirk was Israel's strongest supporter, but then he started to question October 7th as well as Israel's methodology. Yeah, I think as information comes out, like this is, as you said off the top, Sheila, this is literally a live unfolding. New details are emerging and within the minute, even since the last time I wrote that article. So many new things that have been said and done and obtained.
I'm just going to put a pin on that one there, because I don't think that is relevant at all, given what we know about the shooter's weapon and how that was decorated. CBC is saying that it has cultural slogans on it. Well, I think we can fill in the blanks there, and I think we will after the break, about what was found on the weapon. So I'm just, we'll move on. JR, $10. If the tragically but unsurprisingly tone-deaf responses from the CBC, CTV, and other lamestream media hosts don't get called into account, I don't know what will at this point. I hope they all lose their jobs like tomorrow. Today, before the close of business today, jettison David Cochrane. In fact, the man should have been fired many times over. He still remains unemployed at the CBC. Should tell you something about their standards, but his behavior over the last 24 hours has been absolutely atrocious, ghoulish. Pasty George, $10. Since CK's public unaliving, what laws will the government pass that will restrict and limit people's rights and freedoms? I'm not sure any. I don't see that Trump will use this to make any attempts at attacking the Second Amendment at all. And I think that would not be what Charlie would want.
I think it'd actually be a strengthening of it.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Yeah. This sort of stuff sends me skipping off to the gun store all the time. Okay, let's hit an ad break and then we'll bring our guests on. I'm interested in what they have to say. I've done enough talking for the day. Big news, Rebel News now has premium memberships on X, Locals, and right here on YouTube. For just $4.99 a month on YouTube, you'll get loyalty badges, custom emojis, and access to members-only chats during our live streams. At $8.99 a month, you'll also unlock Rebel News Plus shows and our documentaries. But here's the catch. YouTube could cancel that premium tier at any time. That's why the best way to support us is at rebelnewsplus.com. It's just $8 a month, cheaper if you go annual, and you'll get exclusive extras like an ad-free site, comments access, and even the chance to submit op-eds. Wherever you join us, thanks for keeping our independent journalism alive and strong.
Do you agree with me? It is time to make Canada great again. And that is why we at Rebel News have teamed up with MCGA Hats to introduce, well, the fashion sensation of 2025. Oh, and by the way, these beautiful hats, they are made in Canada. We don't rely on cheap imports coming over from China. So what are you waiting for, folks? Show your pride. This is the perfect thing for a patriot to wear, or maybe there's a patriot in your life that you would like to gift such a hat. Please go to mcgahats.ca. That's mcgahats.ca. Don't be shy about it. Wear this cap. Let everybody know you want to make Canada great again.
All right. We're now joined by Libby Emmons. She's the editor-in-chief over at Post Millennial and Human Events. And then, of course, our friend Viva Fry, a Canadian living in the United States. So I think a really interesting viewpoint on what we're learning and what has happened over the last, I guess, 24 hours. It seems fresh, but also seems old also at the same time. Libby, I'll go to you first. We're learning more over the last few hours as they have found the shooter's gun. And if you get all your news from CNN, they have described it as cultural slogans on the firearm. But maybe you can tell us a little bit more about what we know about this 30-06 Mauser bolt action.
Yeah, so we saw that there are slogans, sayings apparently scrawled on the ammunition that were described as Antifa and involved in trans ideology. Of course, that's something that Charlie Kirk has spoken out against many times, with more of a dedication to truth than the lies that are told by trans activists. And so that's pretty much what we know. They haven't released too many details about that. I know that investigative journalists are certainly eager to find out more information about a potential suspect's name so that they can go digging through social media, which undoubtedly this person has. The FBI had a press conference this morning. They said that the person was apparently college aged and really blended in. There were also photos released of a person of interest who looked to be a tall, thin young man in sunglasses and a baseball cap. So we don't know if that's necessarily a suspect or just someone that they're looking to speak with. And the FBI also has offered a $100,000 reward.
Viva, the hideous reactions are just pouring in. Maybe we can, Olivia, you can bring it up. But first of all, I'm not surprised by finding out that on the ammo there was trans-related slogans. I think that is becoming the rule and not the exception these days with these shootings. But I don't know why I thought this time that it might be different, that the reactions would not be so hideous. Like post 9/11, there was like this bipartisan coming together. Everybody was an American for a very, very short time, but there's this renewed sense of a shared sense of ideas. But we're seeing the exact opposite happening right now in real time, and it's gross.
Yeah, I mean, I've not been amplifying any of those people or alleged people. I mean, there's a number of ways to look at it. On the one hand, people are sick. Like there are sick, demented people out there who revel in misery. There's the other issue that you don't know how much of this is bot accounts or troll accounts, people out there stirring shit just to stir it, and that they're either like legit not real people, or they're just awful anonymous people who revel in negative attention. But there are just legit bad people out there, miserable people who revel in the misery of others. And, I was, the way I think about it, that guy, Daniel Senecal, who sexually assaulted, and people are saying, lock him up so he can get assaulted himself on a daily basis. And like, that is probably the type of suffering that would be a distraction from his own daily suffering. And it's not like you can torture that guy. It might be the pleasure that he seeks in life, which is just to cause harm, be part of harm, even if it's at his own expense. Some of these people, I'm convinced, are engaging in the same type of evil. They revel in causing harm to others because they are themselves miserable, and it's a distraction from their own misery.
I wish they were anonymous losers, but we've got this video from the House floor yesterday. Democrats in the House shout no when it was asked for a moment of audible prayer instead of silence for Charlie Kirk. Let's show that, because this is the Democrats on display. I think these are the people who weaponize the mentally ill to shoot our best and brightest. Let's hear it from the Democrats in their own words.
What purpose does the gentlelady from Colorado rise? Shh. Let's wait a minute. The House will be in order. The House will be in order. Shh. The House will be in order. Shh. The House will be in order.
So not even a moment of reprieve from any of this.
I don't know who wants to feel it. I'll throw my thoughts in.
Yeah, please.
Pelosi literally, and those demonic people literally took a knee for George Floyd. They literally built a mural to, and it's not to say, I don't want to even like reduce Charlie Kirk to
exactly,
but they will take a knee to career criminals and then not take a moment of prayer for Charlie Kirk. And why? They think they're gods. I've been saying this for a while, like the government in general, but Democrats who don't believe in an actual God, the consequence is they view themselves as God. And why would they take a moment to recognize anything higher than themselves and their own authority? It's absolutely disgusting, period.
Yeah, and I think there's more to it than that also. I think you're right, exactly what you say, Viva, about George Floyd, and that these people think that they are gods. They do not recognize a power higher than themselves. We saw that recently with Senator Tim Kaine, who decided to tell us that our rights come from the government and not from God. And we know, even from our founding documents, that these are natural rights bestowed upon us by God, that the government cannot infringe upon. Their job is to protect and defend our rights, not to grant them. And that's actually the very first conversation I had with Charlie Kirk in, I think it was 2021. I went on his show, and that's what we talked about when Joe Biden was all on about, he was all on about no right is absolute. And we were like, nah, that is not the case. But in Congress, yes, we saw the moment of silence, and Congress did keep quiet for about a minute for that moment of silence, but they did refuse to have prayer. When Representative Lauren Boebert called for that, Mike Johnson said that they would have it afterwards, but she wanted it there. And what we have is a Congress that not only thinks that they are God, but is offended by God, is offended by concepts of Christianity, and thinks that it is that Christianity is akin to Nazism, that Christianity is hateful and evil and all of this kind of stuff. And that's the kind of rhetoric that they have been peddling. And that's what we saw under the Biden administration, right? When you saw his FBI say that white supremacist domestic extremism was the biggest threat to this country. And when you had his FBI literally targeting Catholics who went to traditional Latin Mass and targeting Christians because essentially of their faith. They thought that the Christian faith, which is pretty much a faith of peace, they thought that this faith was akin to white supremacy. It's absolutely insane.
Libby, I really appreciate that you drew on a previous conversation that you had with Charlie, and just to really uphold, who he was as a person and his legacy. Is there anything else that you can think of that really stood out to you about Charlie, or a talk that you had, or one of his, key moments in any of his speeches? Anything that you can share with us to really keep his memory alive?
Well, I was on Charlie's show a handful of times. I was on stage with him maybe once or twice on a panel. I was extremely honored every time that I got to, share space with Charlie Kirk. I found him very inspiring. His willingness to always speak up, to always tell the truth without fail, to never give in to lies, to never back down when he knew that he was speaking honestly and directly, and to always do so with a smile on his face, to always do so with complete love and welcoming to the people that he was talking to. This is a man who believed fully in open discourse, in hearing ideas he didn't agree with and combating those ideas. But combating those ideas, if you look at all of his college talks, all of it, combating those ideas with a big giant smile, right? I mean, that is what we saw. He was a senior contributor at Human Events. He was very close with our senior editor, Jack Posobiec. And so, I know the two of them together, and I've seen them in action a lot of times. And yeah, I mean, I had the utmost respect for Charlie Kirk. And every time I was near him, he was welcoming, he was generous, he shared his ideas, he shared his intellect freely. And that this is a kind of guy who the world will not soon forget a loss like this.
From the US perspective, do you see this tragedy as something that's going to quell that discussion or intensify it?
Well, I think this is a key question, right? I mean, this is what we're looking at. This is a man who stuck his head up above the crowd and said, I'm game. Let's go for it. Let's talk. Let's be open. And he was killed for that, right? This is a guy who says, let's talk. All ideas are welcome. And they killed him for that because they did not want to address his ideas, which were grounded in faith, logic, and reason. But that's the huge question. We have a number of conservative influencers, young men specifically, who speak out. There's Jack Posobiec, who I mentioned, Tim Pool. There's a lot of guys who are out there talking all the time, on air and in live events. And the question is this going to shut them up or not? What are they going to do about it? I know that some events have been canceled, and I think that it makes sense for people to step back and take a look around and assess their security and see what they can do to make sure that they have enough security to keep themselves protected and to keep their families safe. Because when you look at Charlie Kirk's family, he's now left a widow, 2 young children, and that's certainly not something that any man wants to do.
I want to ask Viva about that because we've got this Blue Sky seems to be a place of radicalization. I think we should treat Blue Sky the same way we treat WeChat. That it is a pernicious influence in our culture. And you've got the lunatics over there saying, I hope they do Joe Rogan next. Let's do Ben Shapiro next. That was fun. Do Shapiro next. They want Matt Walsh, Joe Rogan, J.K. Rowling.
Do you imagine that they left Twitter because it was a, quote, toxic platform, so they can literally go to their, what is nothing less. I'm not sure if my computer froze.
I see you.
No, I think it's Sheila's. Everything else is fine.
It's me. Elon Musk, who is on the assassination list, is letting me down. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about this, Viva, because you're a high-profile male conservative, although J.K. Rowling, I wouldn't even describe her as conservative. She's definitely not male. But you're out and about, highly recognizable. Does this make you reconsider how you conduct your day-to-day life?
Day-to-day, no. These events, on the other hand, yes. The funny thing is, you don't think it's going to happen to you. These events invite this type of violence, and this is not victim blaming. This is, we're in the wake of July 13. You have these open air events with minimal to no security, or at least no meaningful security at leftist type institutions like universities. And maybe there's a certain degree of complacency where at some point nothing happens, so you think nothing is going to happen, and everybody loves you, like everybody with half a brain and half a heart loved Charlie. But it should cause a legitimate concern for the safety of these venues, especially since when I say demons, and I mean I believe I mean demons,
Yes.
are when they celebrated Luigi Mangioni's extrajudicial execution of the United Health CEO, and you have the likes of Bill Burr egging it on because nobody ever thinks it's going to happen to them. And, you know, I'll control the beast and it'll be my beast to direct at other people who I don't like. Well, that beast will at some point in time turn around and bite you, your hand if you're lucky. But when you had the glamorizing of Luigi Mangione, and I also say algorithmic indoctrination because I don't believe it's entirely organic, this is to be expected, and the response is to be expected. But I'm saying this not even half jokingly. This was an act of domestic terrorism.
Completely.
And anybody who's egging it on or urging more of it should be regarded and treated as a domestic terrorist, period. Now, the question is always, you know, when it goes to aiding and abetting terrorism, is it mere speech or does it need to be financial or something more logistical? But the FBI is going to have its hands full because Blue Sky is a breeding ground for domestic terrorists. It's as radical as any jihadi website, any I can't think of another, you know, terrorist organization offhand. That's how radical it is, and it's an asylum, an insane asylum where everybody's bouncing off the same crazy ideas of each other, and everyone doesn't appreciate how wildly insane and wildly evil it is. I don't know what needs to happen for the great awakening of even these people, but you know, it's coming to the point where even like Cenk Uyghur is saying we're all targets now. Yeah, because when you spend a decade demonizing people and violence is carried out on them, well, it doesn't take much to turn that violence against the people who have been egging it on for the last decade. If they don't think you're radical enough anymore, if you start talking too reasonably, you become the enemy. And I think some of the prominent voices are starting to realize this, but at the end of the day, situational awareness, don't put yourself out there like a sitting duck with no meaningful protection. These venues were always a disastrous concept from the beginning. And it's not a question of blaming Charlie Kirk or the entourage. It's the reality. And then you have to accommodate to the reality as much as you don't like what that reality is.
Well, and just to bring Tamara into the conversation, at Rebel News, this is something we consider all the time. We hold these open events. We always have security at our open events. We try our best to control the in and out at the open events. But our journalists in Canada are highly recognizable. Yep. And we rarely send them out into the world without bodyguards. Alexa Lavoie, Antifa sees her coming a mile away. She can't even walk around in her own city without being accosted. It's routine at our job to have our journalists assaulted in the course of duty. We're constantly paying for bodyguards. We're happy to pay for bodyguards. But it is the natural consequence of the rhetoric leveled against conservatives, that we are Nazis. And so you tell that to the Punch a Nazi crowd, and boy, they're so happy to see a Nazi so they can get that out of their system. Or you say that we're genociding them by simply disagreeing with them. And how would you react to a genocide error? You might react with force. We're seeing that. But this is something that we constantly consider in the course of our work at Rebel News, and it happens to women and men alike. Tamara?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say that Canada is traditionally, or at least seemingly, has less aggressive tactics than the radical Antifa crowd that you see in the United States, but it is increasingly trickling north. And, you know, couple that with the crime, the disorder, the chaos that is proliferating on our streets with things like mass immigration and the importation of radicals who are chanting genocide in the streets with proxy wars. And the landscape certainly seems increasingly aggressive and unhinged. And it's a breeding ground for this sort of radicalization. So maybe just in closing, if you could glean any advice for either your fellow Americans or Viva, your fellow Canadians, what would your message or your advice be?
Well, I mean, the tendency is to think prominent figures are going to be more targets. I mean, I'm not sure it's true. You can have a Trump bumper sticker and someone's going to be triggered.
So true. You can have a Tesla.
No, absolutely. Or you could be unknown. to the person. Like in the wake of the stabbing in Charlotte, my advice was always have situational awareness. You could be a big figure or you could be riding the bus home from work. Nobody's immune. So situational awareness at all times. And it sounds paranoid and crazy, and it might very well be, but don't have people behind you. Know where the exits are, and don't unnecessarily expose yourself to a hostile crowd. The way Rebel News does their news, I mean, it's wild to me. It's crazy because they're literally going into the hotbed of extremism. But you can minimize the risks in as much as possible. You can't deny them. Big or small, known or unknown, just have situational awareness and don't pick fights for no good reason in certain venues. But don't let it silence you into tucking away into a corner, because that won't pacify them either. They want full submission. So silence isn't even enough, because silence is violence. But situational awareness at all times.
Yeah, and I would say, in terms of any advice for Americans, I would say have courage, speak up, refuse to be cowed anymore. Do not nod and just go along with what people say anymore. If we had all just spoken our minds 10 years ago, if we had said, no, trans is a lie, if we had said, no, words are not violence, if we had said, no, Trump is not a Nazi and neither are we, if we had said, no, America is not a racist country, if we had said, no, 1619 was not the founding of our country, 1776 was, if we had stood up to every single one of these lies that were thrown at us, every single one, as a group, all of us who know what truth is, all of us who know what honesty is, all of us, if we had done that, instead of saying, well, I don't want to ruffle feathers, I don't want to upset my family, I don't want to lose my friends, I don't want to get fired from my job, whatever it was, if we had all just stood up and stopped being cowed by these crazy people, these liars, then we would not be here now. We would not be here now. There would be less children who were mutilated at the hands of these doctors. Charlie Kirk would probably not have been assassinated, because he would have had a much bigger group of people saying, yeah, we don't stand for lies here. This is America. We don't put up with it, right? And a whole bunch of other things, If we had just stood up to the lies in the first place, our whole nation would have been a lot better off. So you may be comfy with your little job or whatever. You may be getting along better with your cousins, but who cares? Stand up for the truth. Have courage and do it.
And I think if we don't, then the terrorism that we saw committed against Charlie, but also free speech as a philosophy, would be successful. So I guess the best way to honor Charlie's legacy is to not be afraid to speak objective truth.
I totally agree with you. 100%.
Hey, you guys want to stay on for a little bit longer, or you want to pop off? It's up to you guys. We've got about 6 or 7 minutes left in the show.
Oh,
I'm good for another half hour.
I'll just to move on one thing.
Yeah.
Just say, I forgot what I wanted to say. It's no, in terms of what the FBI needs to do now, it was the media. We touched on it, but I don't know when this great awakening is going to come about, until such time as these media institutions and whoever it is, what we call them, the NGOs, there has been an overt concerted effort to radicalize people to become these useful tools of war. And there have been people calling Cernovich on Twitter, calling for congressional investigations into these Soros-funded NGOs who have had it as their mission to basically destabilize societies by radicalizing youth with propaganda of the highest order. There needs to be some institutional change. People are moving away from legacy media, but not enough. And they might be moving away from legacy media, but into blue skies or into Reddit. And this might be the time. I don't think Trump's going to come down with Second Amendment stuff here. The question is whether or not he's going to come down with investigation or treating these organizations as terrorist organizations. But there should be investigations into what people have been clamoring for. Investigations, these Soros-funded NGOs that have been radicalizing youth for decades, specifically for this particular purpose. And that sooner than later, because it's true. You can speak your truth, and you can speak the truth, not your truth. But these people are not getting the truth, and we have moved into this realm of what I've been saying, normalizing mental illness for a long time, as opposed to treating it. And some people have been weaponizing it. And we need to start looking at who has been weaponizing it for years.
You know what? I'm glad you pointed out the NGOs. But what about the publicly funded institutions? I think we've seen a whole swath of university professors showing us what a bunch of unhinged lunatics they are over the past 24 hours. Let's go to this tweet from our post from our friend Cosmin Jurja over at Juno News. He has done some digging around over the last 24 hours. University of Toronto professor Dr. Ruth Marshall, reacting to Charlie Kirk's assassination. She says, shooting is honestly too good for so many of you fascist C words. And Cosmin rightly points out, campuses are breeding grounds for sadistic freaks who have violent fantasies about harming opponents. And I suppose it would be bad enough if it were just the university students there, but it's the professors fomenting this absolute I say nonsense, but it's worse than that. This is a deep systemic cultural rot that is pulling our society apart at the seams. And the worst part is that we're paying for it. Anybody?
Yeah. And I think that I think it's really telling what you're saying about these professors. And here in the US, we've seen a lot of professors as well, you know, coming out and saying absolutely horrific things. And it's no wonder that Charlie Kirk did not go to college. He was self-taught, right? He learned on his own, and he was not subjected to these radical, crazed, lunatic professors who are part of this death cult and just seek to indoctrinate students. He didn't have to face that. And so instead, he went to universities to talk to students who were in the clutches of this ideology and sought to liberate them. And he was really doing an amazing job. For the past year, during the Trump campaign, we saw every time he went to universities, there were more and more Trump hats in the audience. You know, there were more and more people who would get up and debate him and say, you know, oh, I agree with you now, actually. Can I have a hat? You have convinced me. And that was something that he was working on. He was working to combat the evil that these professors were perpetrating on American youth and to liberate them from this dangerous, progressive, leftist, dark socialist ideology. And they couldn't stand that he was doing that.
Which again is why I think it's more important than ever to stand up more than before and not allow yourself to be self-censored or silenced out of this fear. I think this incident only serves to try to stifle that discussion and silence dissent and dialogue. And if you let it, then the left is getting exactly what they want. And as Viva, you already said, they don't want just your silence, though. That is not enough. And it's a wild time to be alive, especially as somebody who speaks up against the prevailing narrative and dissents against it. I really hope that it doesn't serve to stifle that speech and instead serves to further embolden and uphold it.
Well, I'm not much of a proponent of cancel culture in the sense where it's an injustice. Professors that are saying this should be fired, period.
Completely. Yeah.
And not that. What's amazing is how they weaponize vulnerable or easily influenced youth. It's not much different than how they exploit them with the transgender ideology.
It's the same.
It's the adults exploiting of mental vulnerabilities of the young to use them as the tools for their own empowerment. That professor loves it. She's got her own, like, a minion of monsters that she can say, oh yeah,
right,
kill a gun is too easy, make it hurt more next time. And she knows that her minions are hearing that the exact way she wants to, and it gives her a sense of power. They should be fired. And in as much as Canada has hate speech laws, which I don't necessarily agree with, this is active incitement to violence. And if not legal consequences, professional ones. They have no business being at universities, period, full stop. Every
psychopathic dictator always had their child soldiers. And this is what we're seeing right in front of us. We've also, our friend Leviathan, who covers so many of the Hamas protests in Toronto, found this tweet. And I did some digging around on this person before we came on air. Adeline Belmont, aka Fox McCloud, aka Bunny Lebowski, is a drag artist in Edmonton and a member of YEG Queer History. I looked into that organization. Adeline Belmont was so high off the Charlie Kirk murder, she then called on for Alberta Premier Danielle Smith to get assassinated next. And Libby, if you don't know Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, she has passed legislation which would prevent male athletes from playing against women. She's also in the middle of a fierce battle to get homoerotic smut out of our school library classrooms.
Yeah, she's being roundly slammed for that, right? I mean, she takes
crazy.
a lot of incoming over this. Yeah.
Yeah. So now this person is calling for her death. This is how it's like a frenzy. It's like chum in the water for these people. But I did some digging around on that organization, that YEG, which is our airport call code for Edmonton, queer history. That is, it's funded a lot by the city of Edmonton. So this is public funds flowing into this organization that then employs or sponsors these lunatics. It's funded by Edmonton Heritage Council. That's a municipal organization, the city of Edmonton, and then a bunch of other places. So again, this goes back to, it's not bad enough that NGOs are doing this, but the rest of us are paying for it.
Can you imagine the claim is that there's oppression of the trans community. They've got the flag flying on Parliament. They've got government funding. They've got
a season. They get a season. We used to call it summer.
But it is. I mean, unfortunately, it's what happens on the descent into socialism, communism, whatever you want to call it, authoritarianism. Canada is, I say, from down here, further along that bend than America.
Mm-hmm.
So things materialize differently in America. But it's like, and Danielle Smith. These are Canadian politicians. They don't, whatever Secret Service American politicians get, it's as good as what we saw on July 13. But Canadian politicians, like they have created a monster. I say quite literally, and the chickens are coming home to roost, and it's causing an awakening in the Cenk Uyghurs of the world. But others who think they have control of the monster love that power.
Yeah. Tamara, do we want to move on to some of the Charlie clips that we have together? I just feel like we should end on a hopeful note, an inspirational note.
Please.
Because we've just talked about how terrible things are and how instead of taking this moment to bring the temperature down, everybody's just cranking it up. But let's maybe reflect on, I think the gift of the legacy of Charlie Kirk. Because, one of the wonderful things about this horrible modern era that we live in is that Charlie's legacy is online for all to see.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to put words in his mouth. We know what he says. And there's a digital archive of the kind of man he was. So I'll let you pick, because I know you put some of these together.
Well, this first one that we have, this was Rebel coverage at a Turning Point event. This was about 3 years ago, so summer of 2022. And I think if we forward to approximately the 2-minute mark, that is where one of our freelancers at the time, Juan, is interviewing Charlie. If we can just have a quick peek at this.
For speaking with us here at Rebel News. It's great to be here at SAS. So what are your thoughts right now of how SAS is doing so far? You're seeing a lot of people here that are showing up very pro-freedom, pro-America, pro-free speech, anti-woke. So what are your thoughts about SAS this year?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a record event. We have 5,000 students from all across the country, as you can see. The energy is just spectacular. And look, we're going to save the country. And, it's all about education here at Turning Point USA, passing down American values from one generation to the other. And what we're seeing is going to really change the country. I really believe that. It's a profound thing.
Passing down to future generations. And it breaks my heart that his children will have to look to these internet moments instead of having such a strong conservative Christian father figure in their lives as they grow up. And again, as I said at the top, as a mom and a wife who has a husband who sees the pivotal role that they play in the shaping of the family unit and your children. It truly is a devastating thought that he won't have that direct influence on his children's lives. But let's keep going through the positive stuff. The second
You know
clip
what?
here.
I just want to jump in there for a second because I have a unique experience with this, in that my father passed when I was very young, and I only know him through the scant memories that I have and the stories of his friends and the people who loved him. Charlie's kids will have more. They will have more, and it's a shame that they don't have him, but they have this, as I said, a terrible time in which we live. But one of the good things is that there's this deep digital archive that no one will have to fill in the blanks for them. They'll know. They'll just know. Tamara, I'll let you keep going.
Yeah, this next clip is posted on X, and it's again what Charlie's commentary, and saying here that he was right about Canada specifically.
I recently moved from Canada, and I can say one thing: America is great. Canada is screwed up. And I'm wondering, what would you do if you were Prime Minister of Canada right now?
I would deport Justin Trudeau the first day in office. That guy sucks. Canada's a real problem, man. I mean, because I would basically allow Alberta to become its own country.
I lived in Alberta too, so yeah.
Edmonton or
Calgary.
Yeah, the two best parts of Canada are Edmonton and Calgary. Beautiful country too. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Canada's a really screwed up country, and it's a self-hating country, as you well know, that prides itself on being polite. And this is a great lesson for those of us in the West, that your favorable characteristics of being polite, nice, and welcoming can also be your downfall. And you know that in Canada, right?
Yeah.
Super polite, okay, we're just going to allow a bunch of foreigners over on our country. Super polite, we're not going to allow anyone, we're not going to have free speech. Canada's got a big problem. It does not have the Constitution, so you do not have robust free speech protections. You do not have Second Amendment protections, so the government is able to do whatever they want. I wouldn't want to be Prime Minister of Canada. I wouldn't last very long. But between Ottawa, Toronto, and Vancouver, you have some of the most liberal cities on the planet, as you well know. Canada, I think, is bringing in like half of its population in the next decade in immigrants. It's just not sustainable.
I know.
And it's too bad. It was a once great country. Canada has fallen.
I know. I'm thankful that I moved here, though.
Do you have a U.S. citizen?
Yes.
Oh, good for you.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Welcome.
I was born in America, but then I moved to from California.
You won the lottery.
I know.
God bless, man.
Right.
Thank you.
So
Glad you're
much for
here.
your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that really embodies the positivity, even when talking about such a dark subject and saying, like, welcome, good for you, man, cheers. Just his ability to be blatantly truthful and honest, and doing it with that cheerful smile on his face the whole time.
Well, and I think, just listening to him, as a Canadian, you're always listening to the Americans if they get the facts right about you, because we're so inundated with American news, and you get very little of ours back in your direction. But he had it nailed. Like, there's, sometimes when you watch Americans talk about, Alberta or the West, or they don't know the names of your cities, they don't know the issues facing us. He knew the issues facing us. And it speaks to his wealth of knowledge that his ideas weren't just superficial. He really knew and cared about the things that he was talking about. I'll turn it over to you two, whichever one of you wants to jump in.
I'll let Libby finish with something maybe optimistic. There's no silver lining here. I don't.
Yeah.
The reveling in the memories of a 31-year-old father, Christian man, a husband. There's no silver lining here. There's no. There's nothing. I said this individual killed someone beautiful, and that seems to be what happens with people who are wonderful and speak the truth. And it takes one. I'm not going to swear on the chat. It takes one nutcase to ruin something beautiful for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
No, I feel you on that. I do think that there is one silver lining that maybe embodies a lot of stuff. There's all of us, right? I don't think that we're going to go away. I think we're going to take this memory. I think we're going to take the lessons that he left us, and I think we're going to move on with them. He also brought so many young Americans into this conservative movement in America, a movement that says, I'm not going to let you take my country and destroy it and turn it into something it's not. There's some large number of Americans who think that communism and socialism are not bad ideas, but they are combated by everyone whose hearts and minds Charlie Kirk touched. And I think that's going to continue as a legacy. And I think that there's more that we can do. And I know that we were talking about J.K. Rowling earlier. Anyone who's familiar with that series, you know, and they ended up with Dumbledore's army. Like, there's all of us, right? There's all of us, and we can stand up, and we must stand up, and we must do so together. If the left does anything well, it's collectivism, and they trounce us with that because we are individualists and we believe in independence and personal freedom. But in that, we have to come together and unite and say, no more of this. Absolutely no more. It's not your country. We're not going to let you destroy it. It's ours, and it's worth saving. And the future needs to be a vessel for us to do that in. You know, we cannot be shackled to the grievances of the past anymore.
Before we close out the show, I'll let you guys know. We've got this breaking from the Associated Press. And I think this continues to be just a decent thing that President Trump is doing. First, lowering the flags, and then now this. This is via the Associated Press. Charlie Kirk's casket will be flown from Utah to Arizona via Air Force 2 later today. And
Vice President, be accompanied by the Vice President, yeah.
Yeah, we'll be visiting Utah today with the Second Lady. I'm sort of speechless what a moving and decent thing that the president is doing, but that is his close friend. And again, I mentioned it off the top of the show. Our Canadian Prime Minister took hours and hours and hours and hours and hours to get around to saying something. And even if, you know, he's a liberal kookaloo, but even if you don't like Charlie Kirk, the fact that somebody very close to the president of the United States, allegedly our closest political and diplomatic and military ally and trade partner on the face of the earth, somebody very close to the president of the United States died. Muster a tweet, would you mind? But it took hours, and it was a great shame and embarrassment, I think, to many Canadians that that's just how indecent our prime minister was. But it's nice to see this, I think, moving gesture from the president to the family of Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, and with that, I think that maybe we should just we have one more super chat, and then we can wrap up this very somber Thursday roundup. Ableist SL gives $5. I did not have much of a reaction to Charlie Kirk's death because I hated the regressive left so much. I simply could not hate them any further. Was busy hoping he would survive getting shot. Yeah, I think we all were. It's like if you do anything, if you pray, if you send, you know, whatever healing vibes, do that. And I think a lot of each nation, anyone who followed Charlie and his speakings, took that upon themselves, and we were all hoping for the best possible outcome. But, you know, devastatingly, if you saw that footage, as I wish I hadn't, there was not a lot of hope that could be gleaned from that. So
yeah, pray for the country.
Yeah, and his family.
Yeah, exactly. All right, thanks so much, Libby. Let people know where they can find you again, if you wouldn't mind.
Thanks so much for having me on today. You can find me on Twitter at Libby Emmons, and you can check out what we're doing at thepostmillennial.com and humanevents.com.
Thanks, Libby. Viva, your turn.
Viva Fry, and sorry if I'm I'm just I can't seething rage that I have. It's
me too.
Indescribable, and the people reveling in it. It's inhuman, and it's inhumane, and as I said, I'm just struggling to not say something that I'll regret, and trying not to be too much of a doom pill on anybody. This too shall pass, in a sense, but meanwhile, you know, you have a beautiful martyred Charlie Kirk. He would have rather been alive than a martyr. and the world would have been a better place if he were alive than a martyr. And that's it. The martyr dies, and the rest of the world moves on. And the question is whether or not any lessons are going to have been learned. The question is, are we heading to a better future or a worse future? And I'm honestly very much on the fence right now.
We can find you exclusively on Rumble. Yeah.
Yep. The Viva Fry on Rumble and the Viva Fry on Twitter.
Yeah.
Thank you to you both for joining us and for sharing in some of Charlie's legacy and helping us sift through some of this nonsense and disturbing place that we are in our socio-political landscape in North America. Thanks to everybody who tuned in today. Thanks to everybody who made sure that you could find our stream and find the links, because it is not possible with everybody else in the background. Thanks, Sheila, for being prepared to chat about this today.
As I tend to do when things are bad, I just think, we got this book that sort of explains the way and the path and how to deal with these things. And in Genesis, it says, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good." He brought me to this position so I could save the lives of many people. And I think we have to remember that even in the bad things, like this is bad. I don't think we even understand truly how bad it is. But God uses even the acts done by the evil for his means and for the good. And so that's sort of what I hang on to in all of this. And that's it. You can wrap the show, Tamara.
Yeah, nothing really feels appropriate to say at this time other than rest in peace, Charlie, and tomorrow's a new day. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Before I begin, please allow me to offer my condolences to the family and loved ones of Charlie Kirk, the 31-year-old father of two who was mercilessly assassinated yesterday at a university campus for having expressed contrary views. Universities are supposed to be places of debate where differing opinions can be offered and exchanged in peace and security. We must all unite, regardless of our political views, around a simple principle. Political violence is never acceptable. Every person should be free to express their opinion without fear of violence. Before I begin,